What's up, everybody? It's about that time for another edition of the Crew Radio Show. I'm Kevin Swan, co-host of the show, and the crew are professional people who are also friends that come together to talk about the things you want us to talk about. We talk about it all, and we don't hold back. So come on and join us for another edition of the Crew Radio Show. Love y'all. Welcome to the crew, everybody, here on WHOV 88.1 FM. We are on our social media outlets. We still here in the barbershop having good discussion. Y'all know last week we talked about the Super Bowl and halftime show, Kendrick Lamar and all that kind of stuff. Todd ain't like us, man. I don't know what he talking about, man.
Todd's not like us.
Todd ain't like
Todd's
us.
not like us.
Todd on the other side, man. That joker, I don't know what he doing.
Y'all need to go back and look at it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to go back and recap none of it. It's in the show notes. Go back and look at the show. Listen.
But hold on. Can I just say this? Do I not?
I mean, Tom hurt my pride.
I say things that people think.
Nobody was thinking that but you.
No.
Nobody.
I guarantee there are going to be people who put in the comments. I say things that people think. I just have the boldness and the lack of filter to actually say it.
Okay.
Go back and look at the show from last week. If you listen to the podcast.
I told the truth. I told no lies.
He just go. We're not even going to talk about it. Just go back and you look at it. When I tell you I put my whole hood on my head.
I told the truth. I told no lies.
Okay.
All
right. So we're gonna move on from Kendrick because we ain't gonna agree on that at all.
We're not.
No, we're not.
You don't think we can agree on that?
Absolutely not.
No.
Really?
No.
I'm the odd man out.
You are.
You are, man. Out.
You know what? I would love to hear what the women had to say about that.
Him?
About Kendrick?
No, about what he said.
What part? Because I said quite a bit.
He said a whole lot. Let's just leave that last week.
What part? So that just is in my mind. I'm curious.
No, let's not. Let's
Okay,
keep on.
all right. I said a lot though.
So look, we in this week, right? And
yeah, we are.
We still staying on the theme of the Super Bowl because, again, it's the most watched televised event in the history, but we're not talking about the game now, and we're not talking about the halftime show either. We're talking about where the Super Bowl was played this year. And for those who don't know, it was in New Orleans. New Orleans, Louisiana. There was, right before the Super Bowl time, which is why we want you to talk about this. Help us talk about this.
Wait, time out. You see what he did? Yo, one day we're going to have a behind-the-scenes show.
Todd,
we got to listen.
I want you to talk about this, Todd. There was a huge scandal. There was a huge scandal that actually...
Okay, you feeling me, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
There was a huge scandal that did not get the kind of publicity that I felt like it should have.
Certainly not.
Which is why we doing this show.
You only person, you told us about it.
That's
yes,
right.
I know, but he want me to talk about it.
From a legal perspective, once I set it up.
From a legal perspective.
Once I set it up. So, in New Orleans, there's an NFL football team. What's the team, Jace?
New Orleans Saints, baby.
Now, why don't you switch to them? I just, since you the Eagle, why you cowboy?
Why he flip on you like that?
Why you covering me?
Why don't you switch to the Saints?
We talking about it. See, but that's why
you got to hear first.
But you know what? I have no pity for you because you sided with him against me, so you get what you get. Early in the show, talking about I'm the odd man out, so you get what you get.
But you were the odd man out on that topic.
You get what you go kick rocks. You get what you get.
Now, let me put a disclaimer. We gotta be serious for a moment. Let me put a disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
So this show is going to talk about some very sensitive topics. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're not making light. We have a good time on the show, but we do understand that sexual assault, sexual violence, all of that is very serious. We believe that those who do it should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Locked up.
All right. So we want to be clear about all of that up front.
And if this topic triggers you, you may not want to listen and watch this one.
Correct.
Or have your kids listening.
Correct. So we put the disclaimer out.
Yes.
All jokes aside, everybody. Now, this bombshell came out like a week or two before the Super Bowl, and it got buried, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It's so widespread. I was like, yo, we got to talk about this from every possible angle. So here's what happened. In the year 2018 and 2019, there was a scandal down in New Orleans amongst the Catholic Church. There were a number of priests that were involved in inappropriate sexual activity.
They were molesting the children. You see how he tried to make that all politically pretty? They were molesting the children. Continue.
It wasn't just children.
Yeah, it was some adults and some teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, it was widespread, right?
It was.
So, Catholic Church is trying to do their best to cover this situation up.
As they always do.
Because this obviously, if it gets out, the number of people that were involved would be very damaging. So who does the Catholic Church go to get support for their cause? They call on
The widow.
the owners
The widow.
of the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, the widow.
They also own the New Orleans Pelicans, the NBA basketball team. And the owners get the staff of the New Orleans Saints to work with the diocese down there in New Orleans, the Catholic Church, to minimize the fallout
That's right.
from the number of sexual charges that took place amongst Catholic priests. And so, here it is, the New Orleans Saints NFL team was significantly involved in helping the local Catholic archdiocese manage its public relations during the release time of a list of predatory priests in 2018 and 2019. Key aspects of the New Orleans Saints' involvement include team executives got early access to the list of the accused clergy. Team communications vice president Greg Bensel coordinated a strategy, worked with the New Orleans Times-Picayune, which is the local newspaper, worked with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office
Not this one.
in New Orleans.
Yeah, let's be clear.
The district attorney's office.
District Attorney.
Let's be clear.
Yes, let's be clear.
Team president of the New Orleans Saints prepared questions for the Archbishop. A team spokesman participated in phone calls who he knew was included on the list before the list even went public. And then they also took out certain names
At least 20.
20.
of the people.
And so that people understand how big this was, we're talking about over 600 abuse claims. 600.
And they came out, and the Saints came out at first and said this whole thing was minimal. They didn't have a lot of involvement in this whole Archbishop diocese scandal. They were covering it up until somebody got access to their emails.
The emails always tell
Well,
it.
I tell you, man, if you don't put it in print,
The emails always tell it. They always tell
because
it.
you can't get rid. Even if when you hit, let me help the people out here. If you send the email, even when you hit delete,
It's still out there
not
somewhere.
deleted.
It's out there somewhere. So team owner, like you said, Gail Benson, has close ties with the Archbishop Gregory Amen.
He introduced Gail to her deceased husband.
Yes. And they have a close connection. So that's how the New Orleans Saints and their whole executive staff got involved in covering up predatory charges by the priest in New Orleans.
That's why they ain't been in no Super Bowl.
Ton, I mean, listen,
you gotta read that.
you're in law, man. I mean, we got to call it. You talked about the purple veil. Everybody get called out on this one, man. I mean, what was your initial reaction when you heard about this whole case?
That's why it's important to vote. I'm gonna cut through all the chase. That's why it's important to vote, because that district attorney down there, I think their judges are elected as well. And so those judges, district attorneys, and whoever else that was involved, that was politically elected or in some way politically appointed, and they had a part to play in this. Again, it is important to vote, because if you don't vote, then you get what you get. And when you get what you get, all of these type of things can occur because people feel like there will never be any accountability. That's why people do what they do, because they're not afraid of potential accountability.
So yeah, you're right, man. But it's not just the vote people who got elected. You have involved federal judge, you have the local media, you have the Catholic Church, you got the NFL football team. You got all these entities, man, working together for the Catholic Church, man.
It's that once you get to that good old boy network.
Okay, so can I just break some of this down to you? If you are a institution such as the Catholic Church, you have long reach. Your influence is very long. Why? Because there are going to be people who the Catholic Church isn't that not the biggest denomination in the world?
It is.
Okay, so the Catholic Church has all types of walks of life that come in there, people of all type of stature that attend these churches. And so it's not, to me, a huge surprise that you may have federal judges that may be attending this particular diocese, or if the saints president or the CEO, they are Catholics, or people who are the district attorney's office, they are Catholics. All of these individuals are part of this diocese. So if they are seeing that their diocese has the potential to have great public embarrassment, there is the potential, the great potential for them to want to at least minimize or mitigate it as much as possible. What you did was wrong. I don't condone what you did. I can hear them saying, but I don't, for the sake of the faith, for the sake of the church, I'm not going to allow the church to get this type of reputation or this ruin as a result of this. I can see them doing that all day long.
Man, there were 600 abuse claims in this whole situation. There were, as you said earlier, Jason, 20 names of clergymen who were involved. Their names got omitted.
And some of them had criminal charges and convictions. Mm-hmm. So they were found guilty. This is not an accusation. You were found guilty.
And then the diocese in New Orleans is facing bankruptcy from all these claims, all these lawsuits.
So in other words, you got so many holes in your pulpit that you done bankrupt the church.
Bankrupt the church from the lawsuits. And state police and the FBI have launched investigations into how the church has been. So there's been investigations, but one group, Jason, that has not launched, as of the time of this recording, has not launched an investigation into this is the new NFL.
Mm-hmm. And that in itself is troubling.
Why are y'all shocked? Help me. Just like you asked me why I was shocked about black people being scared of other black people. Please explain to me why y'all shocked.
So for me,
because we're talking about money. We're talking about prestige. We're talking about influence. We're talking about status. Please tell me why the NFL will want to not get their hands muddy.
For me, is I think it goes deeper than just that part of it, because you look at it and I mean, it's hard not to look at things from a racial standpoint, but you got the racial component of it, and then you also got the money.
What's the racial component?
These are mostly all Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon.
Okay.
But
so you think because they're white that they're not getting the same level of focus as if they would have been black or some other type of ethnicity?
I'll give you an example. When Ray Rice punched his girlfriend on that elevator,
he but knocked her out, and it was caught over. It's one thing for people to say you hit me. It's a whole totally different thing when I see that you hit me.
We even go back. Look at it from a racial standpoint. I'll go to the money. When God rest his soul, when Kobe was accused of raping that woman, the backlash he got. But when Ben Roethlisberger raped that young lady, he didn't lose his job. They didn't really talk about that a whole lot.
So wait a minute.
So no, we gotta.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that because race is the reason why this whole situation wasn't more widespread?
I don't think Kobe took backlash, to be quite honest with you. I think Kobe just took a little bit of heat, but Kobe survived that big time.
What I'm saying
there was a whole lot of people who never thought Kobe raped that girl. They just thought that girl, he slept with. They thought he slept with her because Kobe had a clean boy image. So now had they said Shaq, maybe somebody may have looked a little twice, but they said Kobe Kobe had a clean image. And as a result of that, a lot of people didn't think that Kobe had committed that crime. They thought that the girl, he slept with her and she was just trying to get paid. And eventually she got paid and it went away.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is when it for me the color aspect of it, when it's someone from our race making an offense, it's magnified. We talk about it for a very long time, but when someone of Anglo-Saxon descent do something similar, we don't really talk about it.
We as in black people.
We as a culture and society. No, it wasn't a huge backlash behind Ben Roethlisberger. He said when they asked him about it, he said, "We're not talking about that," and he moved on, and they didn't talk about it.
All right, so a few weeks ago, we did a show on a little black girl that stood before her church. Mm-hmm. And it was probably 100 people in the church. Mm-hmm. And confessed to being pregnant. That went viral. Mm-hmm. This is 1,000 times worse than that. Mm-hmm. This criminal charge is here. This is cover up. This is scandal of the highest proportion. And ain't nobody talking about this.
There's no video.
Because there has to be a video in this day and age?
I am telling you, when people see videos, it really does change the entire narrative. Let's talk about that Ray Rice for a second. Ray Rice was on his way to playing more years in the NFL.
Yep.
That thing was already covered and done with. And everybody knew what was alleged and the whole nine. It wasn't until that video came out and we saw how he knocked that girl
off her feet and drugged
her off her feet and drug her. It was the heinousness of actually visualizing it that put a stain on him that he could not erase. Diddy.
I was about to say, I didn't want to say it, but
Diddy. You got to say it now, because again, I'm saying things that people think. Diddy. Diddy. People said Cassie lying. We did the show when it first came out about Cassie, and I said, wait till the brothers come out. Y'all say, ain't no men coming out. I said, okay, we're going to see about that. And then the video with him beating Cassie like a dude and kicking her like a dude and then dragging her like a dude. When that was done, everything shifted. I mean, completely shifted. And now people are already saying things about him already, but the naysayers had to shut up then. They had to real big time shut up because now it's a video. There's something different. I had a shooting in Hampton. It was a murder. And it was a heinous murder, but the person who got killed actually tried to shoot the person that killed him. He tried to shoot him first and actually misfired. And the guy was able to get the gun from him, chased him down. It was wet outside. He slipped and fell, and he fell down, and he shot the man while he was on the ground. Shot him up. It would have been one thing for somebody to explain how that happened, but you can't take the imagery that comes from watching someone stand over somebody and just put bullet after bullet after bullet into that person. That person got to go to prison. Ain't no ifs, no buts about that. You got to go.
I understand that.
It's imagery.
It is imagery, and we know that, right? And we live in a social media age.
Yes.
Video. But, Tom, in this case here, you already have, like you said, people have been convicted. You already have documented information.
Don't matter.
That there's a cover-up at every level.
Don't matter.
So you're saying
now, and I'm not saying don't matter to me. We're talking about why the general public is not outraged, why the general public is not blowing this up bigger than what it is. It's because they can't look at a viral video where there's a little girl, or I shouldn't say little girl, but she's a little girl to us, but a teenager that's there saying, I'm sorry, hearing her say it herself, I'm sorry, I got pregnant, while the pastor is in the background saying, and you better not go to her baby shower. See, you could talk about that, but when you see it with your own eyes and hear it with your own eyes in real time, it takes on a whole totally different dynamic.
And we look at that pastor, worse than the pastors in this here who have known to have sexual charges against minors?
It's not that we looked at him differently.
People did hate that pastor.
We as society, because we're all part of society, because I didn't hate him, but we as society blew that up because they had something that was tangible. It is something about the photo, is something about the video. When you have the video, when you have the photo, sometimes when you have the audio, it is something about that just takes on a different level.
But it also depends on who you are.
It depends on who you are, but again, like I said, you bring up the race issue, but again, Ray Rice, we all know Ray Rice he was scot-free. He was in the clear. He was on his way to continue playing. And people got mad at the NFL for not doing more, but he was on his way to continue playing until somebody released the video.
All right, time.
That's when it took a different turn.
Fair. Okay.
The reason why I said, real quick, reason why I say it depends on who you are. This person will remain nameless, but as someone of Anglo-Saxon descent that is documented on audio saying that he has sexually assaulted many women, and he has ascended to the highest officer of the land. But if there was someone that looked like us, and that was audio, let alone the accusation, we wouldn't make it.
So you're talking about a puppeteer who I think has been utilized, I really believe, to bring judgment on America anyway. But nonetheless, you're talking about a puppeteer in that particular stance. He is in an isolated class by himself,
but you still have other people that do stuff of another racial group that when they do it, it's not as bad as when someone that look like me do it.
All I can say is I know some black people that do some bad stuff, that's in political office, that's in influential spaces, and the whole nine. And guess what? They get away with it. Don't nobody say anything with them. They'll do one thing, and people excuse their behavior depending on who they are. And there's no video, there's no audio, so they keep it moving.
I get that in individual cases.
It goes either way.
This is not an individual case. This is 600 families that is grappling with the fact that a priest did something sexually inappropriate.
Multiple.
To some family member. Mm-hmm. And that's not even the biggest issue here.
Well, can I kind of debunk some of that? I think part of the problem that this didn't get as much hype is the shock value. It's gone. We already think of priests, for the most part, as deviants or potential deviants because of the scandal that took place in it started in the mid 80s, all the way up until the 90s and so forth. And so America, I should say, maybe even the world, we don't look at priests the same way, I think. And so as a result of that, when this happened, I wouldn't be surprised if there were people who were like, okay, well, what's different from the other priests that did this? I expect that I'm not shocked by that. And so that's not a tabloid story that is going to make me say, oh, wow, I can't believe that happened. Yeah, I can believe that happened. It's happened before. It's been happening all over the world.
It has. That's not the shock value for me. Because you're right. That is part, unfortunately, that's been a long-standing narrative within the Catholic Church for a long time. The shock value is you have an NFL team, you have the district attorney's office, you have a federal judge, you have local media, you have a newspaper that's all supporting minimizing the damage and the fallout from what they did.
But it's part of what you said. That religion, this is my view, a lot of people ascribe to that religion that's probably involved in this here. So why am I going to bring shame to something I'm a part of? I'm going to try to get as far as I can. And one of the issues that people have with the NFL is because they have support for the New Orleans Saints until they find something different. So as long as we can shut this down, we good.
So I hate to kind of bust your bubble a little bit.
Go ahead.
But you think that's the first NFL team that has done this? That's just the first NFL team that got caught.
Correct.
Because these priests were doing this all over the world. Let's go there. They were doing it in Boston. You think somebody didn't have any connections? I'm not saying that they did, but you think that somebody didn't have any connections to some of those Boston teams? They were doing it.
I'm not saying that.
Come on, all right. They were doing it in LA, all those teams. They were doing it in New York, all those teams. They were doing it all over the world. You think New Orleans, they're the first team to ever do what they're been accused of doing? Absolutely not.
No.
We just got the emails to prove that they did what they did. But I am certain, I have absolutely no proof, but my common sense lets me know, because of the reach of the Catholic Church, I'm certain that this scenario happened or has occurred in other cities.
It has. I believe that.
Okay, then what's the big shock?
The big shock is we've never known it to come out and be true.
Because we got social media now.
Well, no.
Somebody got sloppy.
No. What I'm saying is, we've never known, like in Boston or LA, it's never come out that the team and the judges and the newspaper and everybody was involved.
Well, what makes, but the fact that it hasn't come out doesn't make it not. So let me give
I
you
know
the
that.
Okay, but then what is the issue?
The issue
But
is,
no, I think hearing what he's saying, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may be wrong, but like to hear of, like, okay, we know that the Catholic Church, they've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
But you have like the sporting using their resources to help cover it up. That's crazy work a little
That
bit.
don't shock me.
you have employees of a football
Don't shock
team
me.
that is helping
Don't shock me.
cover up crimes, bro.
Don't shock me. Don't shock me. Does not shock me whatsoever.
Why doesn't it shock you?
It doesn't
When you
shock
think
me
about-
because
of
human
the
I'm not
nature
saying
sport
it's
part
not
of it.
shock. I'm saying,
So
why
what's-
isn't this being, my first question is, why isn't more people reporting on this?
They could be Catholic. The people that you want to report on it could be
So you
Catholic.
think national news outlets, we haven't seen this anywhere.
I ain't shocked by this. If you got this kind of juice where you can get sports teams to give you their entire PR staff dedicated to minimizing your criminal
Enterprise.
Thank you, because I couldn't get the word out. Enterprise. We could talk about RICO here. Your criminal enterprise. So you telling me you got that much juice that you got all these entities, judges, DAs, sports teams, and who else,
News outlets.
and whoever else. You're telling me that you got all that juice? You telling me that can't happen somewhere else?
It can.
Absolutely. And then you're going to tell me that the media outlets can't be a part of this as well, as part of the cover up as well? You got everybody else. Why not them? What makes them immune?
But it just feels weird when you talking about you're adding to the cover up an NFL or a professional sports team when they have their own stuff they're dealing with. Now you're gonna come over here and do that for me.
You had editorial staffs on some of the biggest newspapers in the world that declined to do an editorial concerning this last election because they were afraid of the backlash that, I'm going to go right there. They were afraid of the backlash that they were going to get if they endorse one candidate over another. They've never done it in the history of them endorsing. They've never done that. But they did it this one time because they were afraid that he was going to win. And many of them thought he was going to win. There were pundits who didn't speak up, but they knew that he was actually leading because people were not saying who they wanted to vote for real, but they knew he was going to get it. It was a landslide. That's why they didn't report from the editorial branch of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times. And so their media, they're institutions, their names are institutions. And you telling me you upset or or you find it strange that CBS or NBC or whoever else ain't doing that? Institutions aren't doing this. So it is the norm. This is what we are.
We cover up for the interest that we believe.
Come on now.
I believe that. I just think that in an age where we like to exploit and put out there and put on blast everything.
We exploit it as long as it doesn't come up against my interests.
But what about the people who ain't Catholic?
Who cares? They don't care.
So you don't find this story,
Because it's not always about my Catholic interest. It can sometimes be about my monetary interest.
so for me, I'm saying it's not, again, the respectfully, the sexual piece is secondary to me than all of the coordinated efforts of all these entities.
Your outrage
Yes.
is that it can be covered up.
By so many different groups working together.
And I'm asking you, why are you shocked?
I'm not shocked.
No. Why are you shocked that so many different entities are willing to cover it up?
I'm not shocked by that. I'm shocked by the lack of attention, the lack of outrage, the lack of people not
But
standing.
isn't that the same? Because isn't that a cover up? Isn't that minimizing?
Because again,
If you don't have outrage,
There
if
was-
you don't report on it, aren't you in essence covering it up by omission? You can
Yes.
cover up by actual acts, or you could cover up by omission, by declaring I'm not going to report on that.
of course, and I'm sure the NFL went down there and said, look, we got the Super Bowl here. Any of this story has to be buried.
You better talk.
We'll pay you off.
You better talk.
But then there's social media.
Social media.
Social media is not beholding to the institutions. Social media wants to expose the
But
institutions.
social media is too busy talking about the Kendrick and Drake beef. I ain't got time to talk about no Pope. I didn't even have time to even research 2025, Project 2025, to find out that I'm about to elect a sociopath. So why I care about some Pope or care about some Catholic priest doing XYZ when this guy can have a direct impact on generations to come?
So let me ask you this. You're an Eagle fan now. Do you think...
Hold on, that's a shot. What you mean?
It's not a shot. I'm about to ask you a question. If you found out that the Eagles...
But that's him.
I'm asking it personally, right? If you found out that the Eagles ownership was involved in covering up a widespread scandal in the church to protect clergy who were known to be committing sexual violence,
Ask him the ultimate question.
would you still go to the games? Would you still support the team? That's what I'm asking.
No, I left the Cowboys for lesser. So no, absolutely.
Who's your
not.
basketball team?
I really don't. I'm a LeBron fan. I used to be a Chicago Bulls
All right,
fan.
so if the Lakers in California, they found out
If LeBron.
it was his team,
I'll be hurt. I'll be shocked because his character says that
it's not him. It's the owner.
That make it him. It's LeBron.
Yeah, he made it him.
Make it him. Make it personal.
I personally don't think though a lot of people would change that. That's the sad
no,
part.
they
for me.
wouldn't. They wouldn't.
But
So-
I don't understand how not though. Like,
Because
would
people have a
support-
way of separating their fandom.
And people, look at R. Kelly. We were talking about him last show. Look at R. Kelly. You got people still talking about let R. Kelly go. R. Kelly is innocent. R. Kelly didn't do what he did. You still got people saying that. You actually still got some people who are supporting P. Diddy
Yes.
right now. With all this, the video and all, they still support him. People are going to be people. There are some people out there that gravitate towards wickedness, evilness, things that would normally shock the conscience of your average person. Some people gravitate. Did you not know when Manson went and had all those people killed in LA, there were women who were writing to him to marry him? To marry him. He is a lunatic. He had a whole household full of people killed, including a woman, Sharon Tate, who was pregnant. And they are writing him in prison while he's on death row. Marry me, lunatic.
I get it, man. So again, let me pivot for a minute because part of this is to talk about our own individual entities. So I know you talked about earlier about voting matters, and in your position as a Commonwealth attorney, you are elected, right? Can we have this conversation, man? About we've had it off air, how when we see others in our professions doing crazy stuff, man, how people then begin to look at us who trying to do it right, trying to do it honorably, but they're still giving us side eye, right? So for you, knowing that the district attorney's office was involved in this and they were covering up and they were withholding information from the public, and you know that's not you, man. What do you say to that part of it?
Indict that joker.
Do you?
When you ask the question, I'm like, what do you think?
What you think I'm gonna say?
Todd is justice.
I'm for real. Indict that joker. Indict him. If you cover it up, you committing a crime, whatever, indict that joker. That's just the bottom line. You got to send a message. I am all about sending messages. You got to send a message.
So who would be responsible for the viewer or listener? Who would be responsible for the indictments?
If you're like a regular viewer or a listener, you're asking.
Now, I'm asking if somebody's listening and you say indict the Joe. Well, who is responsible for indicting the district attorney?
Well,
whoever?
actually, he's responsible for indicting himself. But there is well, you're in New Orleans or you're in Louisiana, so I don't know how that.
How would that go in Virginia?
In Virginia, you could potentially see if you could do a recall on the election for him, because if you did something dirty like that, then that means you were derelict in your duties, and so you have to get a certain percentage of vote. I think it's 10% of the voters who voted in that last election for you. So, like, if 100,000 voted for you, I think 10,000 signatures to put you on the petition, the circuit court, to have a hearing to get them to grant a recall election. You have a recall election, and they decide, the voters decide whether to remove you from office. If you're removed from office, the circuit court judges in that city would then appoint a district attorney. That person could indict. The police could indict, but most likely would not. They would probably, because the common attorney is the chief law enforcement officer. So if they indicted, or if they couldn't indict, they can only take out an arrest warrant, but that probably would not happen. But another Commonwealth attorney could indict if they were appointed by the circuit court judges. So you can, and then if it was a federal crime, the U.S. attorney could also indict. So in Louisiana, if it's a federal crime that district attorney committed, the U.S. attorney could actually indict.
So what would be the actual crimes that were committed?
Well, see, I don't know what he did.
Right, I'm just saying, if you're looking at this, what could be like withholding evidence or
it
not?
could be obstruction of justice. If you knew that a crime was committed and you covered it up, that's absolutely obstruction of justice. And then if you knew that somebody committed a crime and you helped, aided, and assisted in any way in the cover-up of that particular crime, that could be considered an accomplice after the fact. That's a felony.
So, Tom, for you, man, personally, I know there are bad apples in every profession, right? We know that. When you hear of a bad apple in your profession, does it make you personally feel like, for people who look at you in the same light as the bad apple?
No, because that's that apple. I look at it just like if there's a bad teacher, there's a bad doctor, there's a bad pharmacist or whatever. You're going to have, unfortunately, bad actors in any profession. I hope that my character, my history, my example has been of such nature that it distinguishes me from any potential connection to those bad apples. But what I would say to those individuals who are in some kind of way underneath them, as like if they're a public leader or some type of politician, use the power of the vote. At the end of the day, like in Virginia, you can do a recall election. You can get that person out of office. So it's not like you don't have a recourse. You do have a recourse when someone does something unethical or illegal. You can have that person removed for office. They did it for Marion Barry in D.C. They did it for Mayor Hawley in Portsmouth. So you can do that. It's just, it takes work to do that. You got to be willing to put in some sweat equity, but you have a recourse.
Jay, how about you, man? When you hear of other worship leaders or people in your profession that may be a bad apple, or they're in the news, and does that impact you personally?
he'd be hurt for a long time. If he went based on that, he'd be hurt for a long time.
This is a rough crowd. Boy. It's yes, that is true. I would be hurt. It's also frustrating because, like Tom said, it's kind of beating a dead horse. You got bad actors and everything, and just because you have one worship leader, or worship pastor, or whatever that has indulged in a sexual promiscuity or illicit drug use, that don't make all worship leaders the same. Then there's also no room for redemption either. Once you're labeled that, like, it kind of follows you. You have to do a lot to get back once you are exposed, embarrassed, whatever you want to call it. So
stay right there. Stay right there for a second, because I want you to talk about this too. Because the one thing I do not like, because I like to play fair as well. So I believe in fairness. Mm-hmm. The one thing I do not like is when a person is falsely accused.
Correct.
And the media put all the attention on the accusation.
They never come back and retract.
And they never come back
to small.
say, or it's very small, to say that that person either has been caught lying or there's been evidence that's been presented to show that that person was not being honest, or the DA has dropped the charges because of credibility issues in the evidence. They never come back to point those things out. And here's the thing, the DA did a good thing if he found some things that are shaky or absolutely just cause for him to drop those charges because he does not believe that this person actually committed this crime. They did a good thing. That you don't hear about.
You don't.
You only hear about them locking people up, but you never hear about the cases where they felt like the evidence wasn't sufficient, or they felt like there was questionable integrity with the accusers. You don't hear about those cases being dismissed. And so it would be nice if the media would come back, because your name is the only thing you have. Yeah. And if once your name gets smeared, then it's like no one's talking about the fact that you just got redeemed, or in some way your name got cleared.
That is true. And especially in your profession, man, when you're dealing with minors, man, if somebody makes an accusation, it's very hard.
Oh, you're done.
To recover. It
you're
is.
Done.
But yet, if it is true, and now you feel, I'll be honest, I struggle with this. I do. I struggle with this because I'm looking at this case. This is not just promiscuity. This is not just drug use. Those are personal things. Mm-hmm. These are crimes. Mm-hmm. These are crimes, and families are coming to our churches and being taken advantage of by predators, man.
Yeah.
Who call themselves people of faith.
Who call themselves shepherds.
And yes, that to me is the worst. Because people come to the church already vulnerable and hurting
and
broken and looking for healing. And you got people out here taking advantage of their vulnerability and their hurt and committing crime. It's hard to recover from that, man. If you are a person who is of faith, it just, that makes you just not want to. If you can't trust in your priest or your pastor, then who can you trust, man? So I do take situations like this personally, and because I know that I have a lot of people in our church who have come from different places, who are here for no other reason than they just want to heal quietly. They're not even ready to join. They're not even ready to get involved in a ministry. They just know that they got to get back to a safe space of healing. They know they need God. They know they need to be in the house of the Lord. And Ton and Jay, I get tired of hearing these stories of people coming to me privately from other places because they have been taken advantage of, hurt, abused, broken by other leaders who call themselves people of faith, man.
So then I guess you're going to be retiring soon?
Nah, man.
Because unfortunately, that is the whole purpose of the church. We're a hospital.
We are.
And we're supposed to expect the broken.
You
And
expect it from the world, not from the people who claim to be spiritual leaders.
I expect it from everywhere because the truth of the matter is the church, unfortunately, reflects the world. And the things that's going on in the world is going on in the church. And until God decides to judge it and to remove it and expose it, which he does and is doing, because like even right now, we're prosecuting the pastor right now for rape, and the person allegedly went to him for spiritual counseling, and he's charged with rape. He's a pastor.
I think also the church has lost its respect for what we do, because look at Old Testament, we had a priest that went to the holies of holies. They had to tie that the rope around them, and had the bells, all that kind of stuff, and if they weren't right, they died. Like there was immediate judgment, and I think oftentimes, and I even have to. Again, I'm not involved in any RICO and all that kind of stuff.
So do you believe in Leviticus then?
I do.
Burn everything.
Hold on. I don't believe in that. No,
okay, you burn it all. They burnt the house. They burnt the animal. They burnt everything.
That's the thing. We don't do that now.
No, we don't. We're under grace.
So, and I think that's part of people takes God's grace and His mercy and say, well, if I am found, there's a place for me to get back right. But they don't think about the damage they do to people. Because
people lack the fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the fear. Well, there's two fears. It can be the actual fear, afraid of the judgment and the response that God may give for your sin. And then there's the reverence. Mm-hmm. That's the fear I'm mostly talking about, the awe, the reverence of God, and not wanting to in any way disappoint Him, to hurt His heart, to hurt the Holy Spirit. People have lost that in a great manner. And because they've lost that, then what keeps you from doing anything any different than the world? There has to be, it's not your moral compass. It has to be something that's instinct to you concerning your relationship with God that keeps you from doing what the world does. Like, it's one thing you do something in private on your own and you ain't touching nobody, ain't doing to somebody, God's still gonna deal with you. But that's one thing. Like maybe drug use or something like that, that's one thing. But when you start touching the sheep and hurting the sheep and intentionally doing things to the sheep that causes people to be broken and leave the church and essentially leaving God. Because a lot of times people, they put God and church in the same thing. They look at man and God as one. And you did that? That's the blood on your hand?
Yes.
I'm scared for you.
I am too.
I'm scared for you.
And that's why I'm heartbroken. But then to know that not only will you not be supported by your church family because of an unwanted advance by a priest, but then everywhere I go in New Orleans, my football team, my district attorney, my newspaper, my judge is all in it.
So you're speaking of a betrayal of trust.
Across.
And what I'll say to you is welcome to my world.
Man, it's
because the hardest case to prove in court, hands down, is a sexual assault, particularly a sexual assault where the offender is a known assailant. They are the hardest cases. I can prove a murder in my sleep in comparison to proving a sexual assault, because people typically judge the victim versus judging the offender. And that is an indictment on society.
Well, that was part of the issue that we had with, not to keep bringing it up, with the Diddy case and Cassie.
Absolutely.
That
They judged her.
because Diddy is this polished mogul. Like he doing all these things. He's helping the community. He putting people on. And you look at her. Oh, this is a money grab. Or was she a prostitute? Was she a whore? Was she a lesbian? We haven't even talked about could he have potentially done these things. And again, I'm even guilty of that perception too. But it wasn't, to your point, until I saw him kick her on that video. I'm like, God. And if we be honest, America and world, even with seeing that video, you still have some that's saying maybe it was an isolated event. Maybe she did something to set them off. You don't know what happened before that.
You don't kick nobody the way he kicked her, and that's the first time he did that.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying
that was something that he was used to doing, and that was something that she was used to getting because she didn't even fight him back. She just she laid there and tried to absorb the blows because that was something that she was accustomed to getting. So.
Yes.
So the fact that people were still wondering whether he was guilty of that before the video, to me, was number one issue. Because by that time, about 10 people had come out or more had come out and say he had done these things. And then the video came out. And even then, you had people still wondering if this is isolated or maybe she did something so horrendous. You don't do anything that horrendous to get that kind of beat down. And you a woman and that's a man. Or male, I should say, rather.
So with the popularity of the NFL, which we know is by far the
absolutely
the biggest
that shield, baby.
biggest sport in America.
Money.
Do you think this story will have any impact on the fans?
No.
Zero.
No.
Unless they're socially acclimated.
Ain't no unless.
No, I mean, but
just keep it real.
No. But that's not true. I mean, I know I'm probably in a lower percentage.
Unless you see a video, no.
Okay.
Unless you see a video that comes out to amplify what has been said in writing.
You don't think it even cause people to pause?
Yeah, that's right. You don't think there'd be zero impact?
That's what I'm saying.
No.
Pause.
Is anybody pausing right now?
I mean, that's not my team.
This story, no. Is anybody pausing right now? You hear anybody pausing right now?
No.
All right, then. Super Bowl was what? Very, very big in ratings. The halftime show was the biggest ratings that they've ever had.
But do you think it was big because, again, to your point, the institutions intentionally buried the story?
Yes, I do think they buried the story.
But so do you think that if more people were aware of the story and the level of involvement, do you think that would change people's perception?
No, I don't. And the reason I don't think that is because I think people will still let it just float over their heads.
I think people could also, that's like with the R. Kelly argument, the argument of can we still listen to his music and all that kind of stuff. Because I mean, I even, just being honest, being a musician, lover of music, I struggle with that because him as a musician, is unmatched. But
he was a genius. He was a musical genius.
But him as a person, if he did all those things like they say he did, this Joker's a monster.
Now listen to this. You said if.
Because I wasn't there.
He got convicted.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
So again,
that Negro, and I want to call him something else. That look at me, America. That Negro did it. That Negro did it when he peed on that girl. He did it. He just got paid. He paid that girl off. That's all it is.
He ain't had no tattoos.
Whatever. He did it.
So I think for me, the difference is Diddy is one person. R. Kelly is one person. Heinous acts on both sides.
Right.
We are talking about a coordinated cover up across multiple.
But you know what it boiled down to is what we always say. It's the money.
Well, hold on, Jay. I got to gut check him. You have your head in the sand like an ostrich because Hollywood has done it for ages. The music industry has done it for ages. R. Kelly is not an individual. Diddy is not an individual. They are just a piece of that system. That system is
Sia.
Come on. Come on, Sia. I got you right here. That system in Hollywood.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay. Well, then this is nothing more than a system. People covered up the system for Hollywood for decades and decades and decades and
They're
decades.
still doing it.
And they're still doing it. And they covered it up in the music industry for decades and decades and decades and decades. This is nothing more than a system just like they are. And this is a more powerful.
Elvis did it first.
This is a more powerful system because it has a bigger reach.
That's my point. And because of social media today, and young people and everybody like to blow up the systems, question authority, you don't see that in this. I guess that's what's stunning for me.
Because there's no imagery. Just like I said, it's been going on for decades and decades and decades. But you don't hear stories about some of the people that were doing the things that they were doing in the 70s and 80s, not on a large scale. You may hear it here and there, but you don't hear about it in a large scale. But do you think people just started doing these things when social media came alive? No, they've been doing it. It just got more attention because of social media.
Agreed.
That's my point. This just got the attention that it got because somebody decided to talk about it. But at the end of the day, it's a system that's been going on
We don't
forever
see the story. Like you look on Google and they have things at the bottom.
No.
You look at CNN, look at things at the bottom.
Yeah.
You look at tickers. You won't ever see this story.
You would not
it's
see
only
it.
because
So,
you sent it to us.
So you know what it sounded like to me when we had the conversation about the black girl who was pregnant, and I asked you about the guys, right?
Yeah.
Y'all sound the same way. That like, oh well, I mean, if the guy went up, y'all be like, what?
Good for him.
Good for him, right?
He took ownership.
And it sounded like that here, right? But these are crimes, y'all. Y'all don't see the difference.
No. You're asking why
There's no level of outrage I don't sense. There's no level of anything.
No,
it's just like it's what it is.
It is what it is. And that's why I don't get what you don't. No. I ain't got to put no. Please, I ain't putting that on there. It's what it is. Come on. Sometimes you just got to call it what it is. It is what it is. It's a system. It's a system that is crooked, just like any other system that is crooked. It is going to cover up for itself. That is the reality of it. We got to wake up to understand these systems exist in America. They exist in the church. They exist in entertainment. They exist in education. They exist in the legal system. That's why this particular story hits all different veins of life. It swings the pendulum across all different genres and institutions because it's a system that exists just like any other system on all of these institutions.
Correct. And do you feel that for most systems that are perpetuated in our society, do you feel like most people are just at the place where the system is what it is?
People think the system is just wicked. I think people think in general they are bent towards negativity, and so they expect this. There's no shock value to this. And the only way that you're going to get the outrage that you're looking for is if they see that imagery forced in their face. Then when it's forced in their face, they're forced to take some type of accountability of their own outrage.
Yeah, you can't turn
There's
away.
no imagery because
You
there's
can't turn
no
away from it.
It's what it is then.
there's no imagery here because
it's gonna be that
the
then.
claims and the incidents have already occurred.
Then it's going to be what it's going to be.
And it's happened for so long.
And so again, as I said, it's an indictment on this world, this social media, this America. It's just an indictment on our culture that you can have something as egregious as this situation,
And nobody's moved.
and nobody is moved by it, and no one is talking about it, because I really believe it has become a desensitized America.
Yeah. And we got to run on that note.
All right.
We here at the Crew want to make sure that we extend our certainly our prayers to these families that have been impacted by this whole situation. If this is true, 600 claims of clergy abuse, and even still, we don't have all the names of the clergy because at least 20 have been hidden from the record. It's cover up everywhere, and this is the reason why people say this is why I don't go to church now.
That's right.
This is why I don't want my kids around.
That's
Nobody in the church, because we don't know what they're doing.
But I ain't going to hell for nobody. And so as far as this, that's why I don't go to church. Okay, you can go kick rocks on that one. I ain't going to hell for nobody.
Right.
That's where you got to just come to reality. You ain't going to church because you have church hurts and you have church offenses, and you need to let God heal that, because God and the church are two different entities.
You're right, but you're right. And I've made that analogy too. If you had a bad experience at a restaurant,
Come on.
you ain't gonna stop eating at all of it.
Yes.
You're gonna go somewhere. However, if you are raised Catholic and you see this happening consistently in the Catholic Church, everywhere, with little accountability.
Who said you gotta stay a Catholic?
Well, for some people, look, man.
Some people think Catholics ain't even saved. So, I'm just saying.
What I'm saying is, man, a lot of people who are born into a particular denomination, it's changing now, but a lot of people who are born tend to stay in that same vein.
I was born Church of God in Christ. I'm in a non-denominational church.
I'm with
now.
you. I was born Episcopal. I was raised Episcopal.
And so my thing is, I'm chasing God. I'm not chasing some denomination. Grow up, okay? Grow up. It's not about the denomination. It's not about the brick building. It's about your relationship with God, because that's what's at stake. Your relationship with God. And I don't want anybody who's listening to get to that day where they stand before God and he's going to ask them why they made the decisions that they made, and they made excuses as to this person and that person. And God's going to say, I'm sorry, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I don't know you. I just want to hear two words. At the end of the day, well done.
I'm with you. I think because we are more vested than most people. And for people who are used to, again, you could make the same argument for political affiliation. Certain people who are born into a Republican family or born into a Democratic family, that's all they know. That's what they're going to vote. End of story. They're not going to.
But you're talking about your soul in this situation. That's what makes it so different.
But for a lot of people who go to church, it's not any difference, man.
Well, then here's the problem. Then you need to have a true encounter with God.
Yes, you do.
Because I think a true encounter with God is going to help you to see it's not about a church or a man. It's about Him. It's always been about Him. And you don't want to miss that opportunity to know Him, because at the end of the day, Kev, this stuff right here, all this stuff gonna fade away, and it's gonna be you and Him, and you got to answer for you. You can't go and point no fingers at anybody else, because at that particular time, the spotlight gonna be on you. Each and every one of us are gonna have that moment, and so we got to all take an account for us. And I hope that people are hearing this. Stop playing and let God heal whatever it has to be healed. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to answer for that.
Yeah, we out of time, and that's well said. I want to end there with no other comments. We appreciate y'all listening. We understand this was a very sensitive subject. We value your thoughts and input. Drop a comment. Let us know on social media what you think and on our YouTube channel. Until next time, be blessed and be a blessing to someone else. Peace.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of The Crew Radio Show. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. We're always looking for great sponsors to support the show. If your company would like to reach our highly engaged audience, please drop us a line at thecrewradioshow757@gmail.com. Until next time, thank you for kicking it with the crew.